Hello and welcome to Swedish Linux. Linux the right way. Today we're going to talk about the Linux community and Linux as a whole system. Why Linux still is only a 3-4% system, and what Linux community and Linux need to do to reach higher level in the percentage and become more mainstream. Please like, subscribe, and press the bell notification. Doesn't hurt the channel, but it helps me if you want to see more stuff from me. Now, we're going to talk about it because this limbo state that Linux has been in for 30 years is continue on the desktop side. But on the network side, on the server side, we see Linux growing and have majority of the network of the World Wide Web. So we're going to talk about it and see what we can do about it right after this. Welcome back. Thanks for watching. Now, let's talk about what Linux really need to do. Because you see, if we watch the history, we know that Linux has been around the 2-3% for a very, very long time. It doesn't grow. Now we're reaching 3.8, almost 4, but it's way too little. And if we look on the server side, Linux is completely dominant. So why isn't the desktop situation better than it is? Well, this is all about my personal opinion. So this is not some holy grail facts. It's just my personal opinion what Linux community needs to do. So let's switch over to the main. Now, here you see you have the Cosmic Desktop. Really? Is that what we need? Is that what System 17 is pouring millions of dollars into? No, we don't need more desktop. That's going to be GNOME rewrited, basically, and with Rust. Come on, we don't need that. We have dozens of desktop that works very well, KDE, GNOME, and so on and so forth. Instead, if System 76 took that money and that engineering's, the programmers, and put it into good use, like Canonical did with Microsoft, team up and develop few apps for the Linux community, that would be a great thing. But you see, that's not what's happening. Instead, we're still divided and fighting over X and Y, and doesn't make the Linux to grow at whole. And for this, I believe it's unnecessary. They're putting all the eggs in one basket, and it's going to be flip. Because, in my opinion, it doesn't look really good. Or at least how it looks now. But you see, if the Linux community did what Canonical did with Ubuntu, and start to contact the major developers, companies that develop major systems or programs that people actually use. Because we can discuss, or we have better options, or we have alternative options. Most people on this planet don't give a bloody fuck about that. If they've been using software X for 10, 15, 20 years, they're not going to change regardless of what operating system you're using. They're going to use that system that supports their software. End of discussion. And it doesn't matter that we in the Linux community have much, much, much better software, what we claim, but it's still going not to reach the end, because the person who's using, for example, Adobe Suite for 20 years, they're not going to switch, regardless that Linux and other software is better. They are going to use it. So, for me, the all the major Linux distributions could together, like Canonical, Red Hat, OpenSUSE, and so on and so forth. They could create a new company and put some resource in it and some developers into it that will work the same way as the server system does. Because on the server system, trust me, when there come new things, it will be implemented in a couple of hours or couple of days and it's done. But that's not happening on the desktop. It can take years for some updates. Now, people are used to use this. And it doesn't matter that Linux is better and Linux has better alternatives. To be completely clear, there aren't anything that's better than that. And it's now a standard in all the photography, publishing areas, and so on and so forth. Adobe is the standard. What the community should do with the big corporations that behind, like I said, Fedora, Red Hat, OpenSUSE, Canonical, and so on and so forth, they should create a new company and put developers that can start to talk with Adobe and say, hey, let's make a Linux version. We will add some money, but primarily we will give you some support programmers and so on and so forth. Exactly what Canonical did with Microsoft, and Microsoft helped them and gave them the resources they needed to develop some of the apps, Teams, for example. That's what the community should focus on, because regardless of how good Linux is, people will not switch if they don't have their software, simply. And that's what's the missing part of the Linux community is. We are lacking some critical apps. For example, the Adobe Suite, Microsoft Suite. Doesn't matter we have LibreOffice and LibreOffice is good enough for 90% of the people. It's still not Microsoft Office. It doesn't matter that LibreOffice is free. People are used to use Office, they have the script and so on and so forth. They will not switch for the God of love to another operating system because just we say so. Cubase, very good software. Why not start to talk to them? Why not talk to them and see if we can make a light version for the Linux community? DaVinci Resolve, simple and one of the best software. Why not talk to them and make an image version or a version that works at least on the major parts of the distribution, like Ubuntu, Red Hat, OpenSUSE, SUSE, what it's called, and so on. Because today it's still not. It's so complicated and so hard to make it work on anything else except Ubuntu that most people don't use it. Why not a simple program like QuickLook? There aren't any good alternatives on Linux. Why? Simple program like that. Work with Microsoft. Make them to develop it for the Linux community. Why not the Power Toys? Do something similar on Linux community. Work together with Microsoft. Say, hey, we give you some of the engineers. We give you the time. We have the resources in form of the computers and all. Can you help us make Power Toys for Linux? Why not? Quark Express, very good software that was dominant in the 90s. It's still very good software. And another software, for example, is this. Why not talk with Wondershare and ask, hey, let's put some energy and make this, because there ain't aren't any video editing that is close to Fedora on Linux. With all the plugins and all the things, there are nothing remotely near this system. Because it's not only about editing, it's about all the plugins, all the sounds, all the templates, all everything that includes. Could easily be added to, for example, Kden Live, if they just work together. Instead, we are fighting each other and blaming, this Linux distro is better, this Linux is better, or vice versa, this desktop is better, environment is better than this. Stop doing that. Focus, or everybody develop their own version of something. Put the energy together, put the development together, and push forward to some of the major software that people are using. Because when this software comes to Linux, people will follow. And this is not hard. And then many Linux elites says, why do we need to ask them? This is a chicken and egg scenario. Big corporation will not put that energy and money and all that for something that is 3-4%. But if you meet them halfway, and they maybe meet you halfway, maybe they can do something. Maybe we can start to get the first version of it. For example, Adobe. Just make the Adobe Photoshop, no other software. Begin just with Adobe Photoshop and make it work. Talk to Adobe. Make them understand that you are willing to put that time and energy into it to create it. Because when Adobe Photoshop comes, and maybe later some other software, people will come because people are really fed up with Microsoft and Apple. They want to switch, but if there aren't their apps, they won't switch. Doesn't matter, they love or hate Windows or love Linux. Doesn't matter. Make them make them work together so they can develop programs like that. I mean, Canonical can do it. Then the rest of the Linux community can do it as well. If all the big Linux distribution, the top 10 biggest Linux distribution, put aside a few engineers and start doing this together with cooperation, like Wondershare, for example, Quark Express or Adobe. I mean, I'm not talking about that you need to do all the apps. Just do Photoshop and Lightroom, these two apps. That's beginning with that. And or even make a light version of it, which Adobe has, and start with even that to make people come to Linux. Then I guarantee you people will come. But as long as we in the Linux community elitists, the elite, want to fight each other instead, we are not going to be more than a few percent operating system. Or until something dramatic happened with Apple and Microsoft, that Linux is for some reason the only option. But I can't see it's going to happen in the near future or even in a far future. But this, creating all these apps, start development, or maybe some other apps which I'm not aware of. Start doing that. Work together as one unit towards get the major program out of Photoshop, Lightroom, Office. Then we start to get people. Gaming is very good. It helps, but it's a small percentage. And gaming is still far away for many titles that to become the new standard. Even with the Steam Deck, doesn't matter. We are still far away to replace Windows as a gaming computer. But if we put all the energy together towards one goal, let's say 1 year we do Photoshop, next year we do Lightroom, the year after that we do Quark Express, or we do Power Toys, or we do something other, then in 5-10 years we will reach their goal and Linux will start to grow. That's my thoughts about it. I know I'm rambling about it, but I believe this is what we need to do. We cannot continue doing the same thing and fight about which desktop environment is best, because we already have a dozen of them and most of them are very good. We don't need even more. Put that energy and money and resources towards instead working on good apps. With that will people come. So that's my thoughts. Like, subscribe, and push the bell notification. You help the channel. It won't cost you anything. This is my 2 cents about it. I know a lot of people will hate it, won't like it, but this is the dark reality we as Linux community need to face and start doing, because we've been doing the same things for 30 years and on the desktop side, and we haven't moved much. But if we start doing what they're doing on the server side, on the desktop side, then we will really start to grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.